Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. And after an extremely frustrating day yesterday, when my video editing software decided that under no circumstances was it going to sync the audio correctly on yesterday's World of Tanks video, which ended up meaning that I spent the entire day of my 51st birthday just rendering the same World of Tanks video over and over and over. Hopefully, we're not going to have that problem in today's World of Warships video, which is kind of weird because it does only seem to be happening in World of Tanks. But everything's recorded, edited and rendered the same way using the same software. It's just weird. Anyway, fingers crossed. So what do we have for you today? Well, as you can see, Italian battleships are now a thing. I mean, technically, you could say that Italian battleships have been a thing for a while, although only in the shape of premiums, with things like the Azzurlane Littorio, the Julio Cesare, and what's the other one? I'm sure there were three. Oh, of course, the Roma, the one with the beer can camo. Anybody who's seen it will know what I'm talking about. But now, there's an entire tech tree full of the buggers. And to be completely fair, I'm surprised it took this long for them to arrive in the game, because the Italians did build some very, very good battleships. And a lot of them. And Dave here, and for once, that is actually his name. This is Dave 94T in the Tier 7 Italian battleship, the Francesco Caracciolo. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but it sounds like I am. Francesco Caracciolo. You can almost picture me waving my hands around in authentic Italian fashion as the words just roll off my tongue. Like I said, I'm probably mispronouncing it, but it sounds damn good anyway. And given that these ships are so new, it's likely that most people don't really know an awful lot about them, so what do you need to know about the Francesco Caracciolo? Well, it existed. Most of the Italian battleships do. Unlike certain other navies, which have had battleships in the game far, far longer. She's fairly fast, with a top speed of 29 knots. In fact, she may be the fastest Tier 7 battleship around. I think she actually outpaces ships like the Gneisenau and the Scharnhorst. Her concealment's pretty good too, although she's only Tier 7, so she doesn't have access to the concealment module. But with the 10-point captain and the concealment expert skill, you can get a base surface detection range of 14.32 kilometers down to just 12.5, which is pretty good. It's these 15-inch guns, however, that are probably the ship's strongest and weakest feature. See, the Warspite is a tier lower and is armed with guns of the same caliber. The thing is, the Warspite's reload is faster and it's way more accurate. And the Warspite also has high explosive shells, which is something that cannot be said of the Italian battleships, or at least the new ones. The older premium ones do, and I think they benefit greatly from it. Because here's the thing about Italian battleship semi-armor piercing shells, which of course are the Italian battleship's big gimmick. You know how amazing Italian cruiser semi-armor piercing shells are, especially compared to their armor piercing shells, even on the heavy cruisers, which is utter garbage, and should only ever be used in preference over the cruiser semi-armor piercing when you have the flat broadside of an enemy ship to shoot at point-blank range. It's kind of the other way around here in the battleships, where the armor piercing is actually pretty damn spicy, and the semi-armor piercing is garbage, and useful only really for shooting at extremely lightly armoured cruisers and destroyers. Speaking of destroyers, the enemy Acasta, who has rushed in to contest this cap, is clearly not looking at his... Oh, that was close. Clearly not looking at his miniman. And... oh, he's actually managed to miss with a semi-armor piercing. Yeah, the guns are a little on the inconsistent side. I do have to admit that much. But that Acasta has severely underestimated exactly what he is going to be able to do against the pain train heading into this cap circle from the south. I'm amazed he survived as long as he did, and he managed to get him with the second semi-armor piercing salvo. He's still got a couple of barrels loaded with semi-armor piercing, so he unloads it on the broadside of the Italian Tier 6, the Andrea de Ria over there, and he hit 1250 damage with a single semi-armor piercing penetration. If that had been the Warspite with the same caliber guns, firing high explosive, it would have been 5,300 damage. And oh, some very nice torpedoes up ahead there from the Fusion, the Tier 5 Japanese, who has managed to take out an almost full health Tier 7 Russian Sinop. So yeah, nicely done. The Andrea de Ria has realised that he needs to get the hell out of here. Unfortunately, that does involve turning around and giving broadside. And Dave does have the, the armour piercing loaded, which has far, far better performance on the battleships than the semi-armour piercing does. I mean, I said it's only really useful, the semi-armour piercing that is, against destroyers and lightly armoured cruisers. But at this kind of tier, at tier 7, unless you're firing the semi-armour piercing at tier 5 cruisers that aren't the full attacker, even then you're likely to not do any damage with the semi-armour piercing, because 381mm SAP only has 96mm of penetration, and has no splash damage, unlike high explosive. And even the light cruisers at this kind of level tend to have 100mm of belt armour. So the semi-armour piercing isn't really that useful. Now, as Dave is pursuing the Andrea de Ria over there, and the Fusion is discovering the hard way that it's a lot trickier to torpedo a battleship without being seen when the battleship is making tracks away from you, I just want to draw your attention to something that's been happening on the other side of the map. Now, I'm sure by now you're all pretty much aware that I have very little love for aircraft carriers. However, fair's fair. Check out the Shiratsuyu over here. Now, while I have to acknowledge that he did score the First Blood Award by gunning down the enemy Shiratsuyu and has been instrumental in flipping Capture Point Charlie, he is, of course, being forced to abandon Capture Point Charlie thanks to the massive enemy ships about to flood into it. To wit, a Nuevo de Julio, Iron Duke, Piotr Veliki and Mutsuki from the north, and for his escape route he's run straight into the enemy Farragut while being dive-bombed by the enemy Ark Royal. Unsurprisingly, he doesn't survive. At which point he remarks in chat, "Thanks for all of your support, CV." Now, I'll be the first to admit that there are a lot of things in World of Warships that you can blame on aircraft carriers. So many things, in fact, that you absolutely don't need to go making shit up. Under these particular circumstances, I'm going to go so far as to suggest that the Shiratsuyu's demise didn't actually have anything to do with whatever support he did or didn't get from the aircraft carrier. Funnily enough, the carrier replies in chat, "No problem," which either means he has absolutely no idea what sarcasm is, or he's got a far greater grasp of what sarcasm is than I'm giving him credit for. Either way, that wasn't the carrier's fault. This is, however, far from being the only example of the rest of Dave's team's steadfast refusal to acknowledge reality when, of course, it's far, far easier to just blame the team. Look at where the Ismail died. Yeah. But inspired by the Shiratsuyu, the Ismail is equally quick to jump on the "it wasn't my fault" bandwagon. But despite the fact that he died purely as a result of charging off north when it was clear that they were outnumbered, he does at least have a funny comment. There's more support in an old bra than on this team. Got to give him credit, that was actually fairly funny. It's not the funniest thing that you're going to see in chat in this battle, however. Oh, no, no, no. No, there's far better than that coming up in just a few minutes, as this enemy Nuevo de Julio seems to be doing his best to suicide. I'm not entirely sure what the Nuevo de Julio thought he was going to achieve by coming out from the relative safety of the island over there straight into the gun sights of a pair of Francesco Caracciolos, a New Orleans, an Algerie and a Nicholas. He has at least managed to kill the New Orleans, which I suppose is a fair trade. It's a tier 7 cruiser for a tier 7 cruiser, but there's absolutely no way he's getting out of this alive. And yeah, there it is. Friendly Koenig, over where the Ismail and the Shiratsuyu died, has just managed to get himself a Close Quarters Expert Award and took out the enemy Farragut, but he's suffering from exactly the same problem that the Shiratsuyu and the Ismail were. He's in an extremely target-rich environment, and yeah, it was fairly inevitable that he was going to die too. So, at this point, as far as the raw numbers are concerned, both teams do have parity. They've both sunk an equal number of ships, but despite the fact that Dave's team have lost more battleships, which are worth more points, They've managed to hold on to more of the caps for longer, and so do have a fairly strong points advantage. At this point, the game is very much Dave's team's to lose. They don't need to go charging into capture point Charlie, like the Shiratsu and the Ismail did earlier. They just need to hold on to what they've got. Oh, how many times have we been in this situation before? Let's see if they try to win any harder than they already are. It may not have escaped your attention that despite getting 2 kills, which is useful, obviously, it's ships that are worth points and are no longer shooting at either Dave or any of his other teammates, he hasn't actually done an awful lot of damage yet. Just shy of 40,000, and the game is pretty much half done. The enemy carrier has just taken out the Nicholas, but with 2 of the caps still under their control, and the enemy team unlikely to be taking capture point Bravo in the middle of the map anytime soon, Dave's team do still have a reasonably comfortable, slightly more than 100-point lead. The enemy York is manoeuvring well and stubbornly refusing to die. He's going to be a difficult target for the Fusion to take out. He does have Hydro after all, and much like the Andrea Doria earlier, the Fusion finds it very difficult to stealth torpedo a ship that's running away from it. There's been nothing hilarious in chat for a couple of minutes now, but don't worry. That's going to change very, very soon. Dave has just been joined by the other, Francesco Caracciolo. Sorry, I love saying that. Is that wrong of me? Am I reinforcing racial stereotypes? Am I being insulting towards Italians here? I hope not. I don't think so. I certainly don't mean to be, but, well, you know, it's the social media age. People can and will get offended by absolutely anything these days. Am I the only one who finds it amusing that I can go an entire World of Warships video saying, this guy's an idiot, that guy's a moron, that guy's a fucking imbecile, but if I pronounce the name of an Italian ship with an Italian accent, everybody loses their minds? Is it just me? I guess we'll see. Ooh. Here comes the comedy. Okay, are you ready for this? Right, here we go. Note in chat, the enemy Veliki, the Tier 5 Russian battleship, is demanding that everybody report this CV. Now, I don't know exactly which CV he's talking about. I'm assuming he means his own team's CV. I'm not entirely sure why. The enemy Arcroll did just sink the Farragut. But pay attention, because it's that Piotr Veliki that's going to be the source of easily the funniest moments, in fact, in this battle. Note how he's giving a nice big flat broadside to Dave's 18-inch guns. Watch what happens as he gives a nice big fat broadside to Dave's 18-inch guns. Dave, correctly anticipating that the Iron Duke is going to try to ram him, starts taking evasive action. Now the Piotr Veliki is insisting that everybody reports Dave. Why? Well, hold that thought as Dave manages to successfully avoid being rammed and finishes off the Piotr Veliki, who's still giving flat broadside to him, but has at least managed to finish off the other friendly Caracciolo. Because the enemy battleship is about to explain himself in chat. There we are, giving high damage with a noob ship. You what? You want everybody to report Dave because he's in a new ship and he paddled the bejesus out of you. Yes, that's in fact exactly what he wants. The Piotr Veliki then even further betrays his massive ignorance by saying in chat, an Italian paper ship. The sheer level of irony there is just mind-boggling. Oh, by the way, you may have noticed that Dave is now the only surviving member of his team, alongside the friendly carrier. More on that in a moment. This ship was laid down in 1914. It was launched in 1920, although it was never completed and was scrapped, but this was very definitely not a paper ship. Oh, look at that target. Come on, baby. All 8 of these 15-inch armour-piercing shells. And Boyakasha! There's the Kraken Unleashed. And as we all know, there's no better Kraken than a CV Kraken. The Ark-Roy's torpedo bombers are going to prove to be somewhat annoying for the next couple of minutes, but hang on a second. What is going on in chat as Dave swings the ship around to dodge all but one of the Ark-Roy's torpedoes? Dave's only surviving teammate, the Ryujo, has just said, "Be right back." I have to go AFK. Oh, shit. Well, the Ark-Royal severely miscalculated that drop, far too close. The one that would have struck the bow failed to arm. But this is not a good moment for your only surviving teammate to go AFK. And the position in which the Ryujo has chosen to go AFK could have been a damn sight better as well. So it's 3 against 1, and when you're in a battleship there is not much worse than one of the 3 being a destroyer, who, fortunately at least, has been spotted by the Ryujo's combat air patrol, although not in a position where anybody can actually do anything about it. I'm not blaming the Ryujo here. What, you're not blaming the carrier? Who are you, and what have you done with the real Jingles? Okay, yeah, I know, but shit happens. You sit down, you clear your schedule, you log into the game, you hit the battle button with the best intentions, but, well, shit just has a way of happening. Somebody might knock on the door, there might be a delivery, some kind of household emergency, you might have to attend to one of your children. He at least let everybody know that he was going to have to go AFK. A lot of people don't even bother to do that. It's not much consolation to Dave, obviously, but, well, it wouldn't be fair for everybody to heap blame on the shoulders of the Ryujo player, although he could have picked a way better spot. I mean, why is he even there? It's not like he needs to cap Bravo. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. It could be the CV autopilot, by the way, which, despite more than a year, is still hilariously shit. But either way, while Dave has effectively, for the last minute, been the only surviving member of his team, he is now actually the only surviving member of his team. Oh, and by the way, before I forget again, as Dave attempts to knock out the enemy York over there, earlier I mentioned that the Piotr Veliky's claim that the Francesco Caracciolo was nothing more than a paper ship, as well as being factually incorrect, also displayed a breathtaking lack of self-awareness on the part of the Piotr Veliky player. And the reason I said that was, of course, because despite the fact that there have been 3 ships of that name, it's named after Peter the Great, by the way, that have been in service with the Russian and or Soviet Navy, one of which is a modern Kirov-class battlecruiser, originally named the Yuri Andropov after the former head of the KGB and Secretary General of the USSR. Another was an icebreaker, and another was an ironclad cruiser launched in 1872, none of which are the Piotr Veliky represented in-game by the Tier 5 battleship that guy was driving. The guy who, with a complete and total lack of self-awareness and irony, claimed that Dave was sailing a paper ship. What is that York doing, by the way? Do you not understand that you're firing armour-piercing at an angled battleship? Here's something that you might not know about the German York cruiser, and something that the captain of that German York cruiser clearly doesn't know. It's got the best high-explosive shell performance of the entire German cruiser line. Better even than the Tier 10 heavy cruiser, the Hindenburg, which has a fearsome reputation as a high-explosive spanner. And he keeps firing armour-piercing. I suppose it is somewhat understandable. Oh dear, he's dead. Oh well, never mind. In the York's defence, I suppose it is somewhat understandable, because pretty much all of the German cruisers up to this point have pretty terrible high explosive shells, but newsflash, once you get to the York, that is no longer the case. Okay, at this point I'm fairly sure that the Leon, who has not been seen nor heard from since this game was 6 minutes old, has definitely gone AFK, but the Matsuki definitely has not. The Mutsuki has a 6.2 kilometer surface detection range and its torpedoes have a range of 8 kilometers. So of course, when you only have 281 health left, the right thing to do is to get to within that 6.2 kilometers, get yourself spotted and blown out of the water by the Caracciolo's semi-armor piercing 15-inch shells. However, Dave was within 6.2 kilometers of a Japanese destroyer whose torpedoes can do 14,600 damage and he has less than 13,000 health. And oh shit, there they are, the Mutsuki might have won this game after all. And I'm just going to pause it here. I'm going to tease you for a few seconds. What's going to happen first? Is that torpedo going to kill him? Or did he turn in time to avoid it? Or he's at 998 points. Is he going to reach 1,000? Or is he going to die? And Dave's going to live. What a game. Fun for all the family from start to finish. Dave, congratulations both on the result and on your brand spanking new ship, which you certainly seem to be enjoying. Everyone else, I hope you enjoyed watching this battle as much as I did, because that's it for today. And as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.